This is Electric Universe Geology Earth News. We're going to talk about the Grand Canyon again. This is Green River, Wyoming. This is where John Wesley Powell started off. Of course, before there were any dams on the river, this is the Green River. Comes down here, swings around, then down. Let me zoom out. Runs through the Book Cliffs here. There's a national monument here. Comes down, joins the Colorado, south of Canyonlands, Utah, swings over, and then comes down here. Obviously, the river is smooth enough for whaleboats made of wood with a limited number of rowers. At times, one of the rowers only had one arm to make it from Green River, Wyoming, all the way down through the Grand Canyon. Jet boats can go up the Grand Canyon. It's that smooth. There's just rapids, not waterfalls, over an extended length. It goes all the way down to the Sea of Cortez. So it's really a long, flat river. What's more, there used to be gold mines up here, over here. They'd bring steamships up the river, paddle wheels, steamships, north of Las Vegas. That's similar to the Mississippi River. It's flat. It doesn't have waterfalls. I believe this is the way the river always was. I believe the schist and the granite at the bottom of the river were electrically created, electrically metamorphosed. When it comes to the schist, that's where the process starts, because electricity was condensed at the bottom of the river where the channel is the most narrow, the current density might be higher, creating schist and granite from sediment, which is a really bizarre thing to say, but I believe it in my heart at this point. So anyway, you have something similar to the Mississippi River. And I think that's the way this area was before Venus came down. Probably Venus. It could be something other, but that's my first choice in A, B, C, D, E. I think A is Venus. Over the southwest U.S., creating these mountains, bringing in comet dust from above and digging up formations from the earth, adding to the dust, and then electrically separating it and laying it down in patterns electromagnetically while there's a flood going on, preventing accumulation. So the idea is this is flood here, this is flood there. Flagstaff is dry. You have a mountain up here surrounded by cinder cones, which are probably electrical. I think current trying to go to ground in soft, salty mud while the flood's receding. The flood recedes to here. The path of least resistance would be through the soft, salty mud, not the mountain and not the inland sea that's temporary. So that's part of the deal. It was flat first. There was never anything in the canyon except for muck when the area became an inland sea, because then there's no river to keep the canyon clean. It's an inland sea without water current. So you can get an additional layer of mud. But that's easily removed when the water recedes and goes back to the equator. The dust that's coming down is coating this area because it's dry. The area surrounding here is wet. So it's not coating it, it's falling into the water and becoming part of the desert sediments, flat desert, which is the majority of the West. Part of the time you have dry material, actually it's raining while the material is coming down, coating this area. When there's a flood, it gets sloshed, so you get layers of mud. The flood recedes, and then you get layers of material from above that makes rock, not mud. There's more than just one slosh. Apparently, according to Worlds in Collision eyewitness accounts, there's a reversal of rotation, causing a massive flood from the equator to rush north and south. So it's going to be coming through here. This is going to be filling up with water going north It can only go north until the Earth starts to rotate in the opposite direction. Until then, the water goes north because that's evening out the surface. When the Earth starts to rotate in the opposite direction, it pulls 13 and a quarter miles of extra sea level back to the equator, reversing the process. In between the Red Sea and the law giving, according to the Hebrews, the sun changes its motion 4 times. That means that the sun is doing whatever it's doing. It's not changing anything. The earth is changing its motion. Each time the earth changes its motion, you're going to get another slosh in the opposite direction of the change of motion. See, wherever there's water, downstream, you're going to get a new layer of mud, which might be fairly quick. The water then recedes, and you get more welded tough type formations on top of that. But the majority seems to be dust from above with an occasional slosh, creating shale. In some instances, the shale is full of trillions of barrels of oil, not at the Grand Canyon. What's nice at the Grand Canyon is that there are 2 layers of basalt running through this, which I assume is material being excavated from the valleys. It's red hot. It winds up being layers of the Grand Canyon. I hope this helps people understand the process. There was never anything in the Grand Canyon except for a little bit of mud occasionally, easily swept away. What is at the bottom of the Grand Canyon are boulders so huge, sort of like the size of trees on the tops of mountains, as described in Worlds in Collision, probably falling off from the sides of the cliffs. They're so big that the water current, can't wash them away. Today it silts in because of the dams, but in the old days you just had boulders. At the bottom of the boulders is probably the beginning of the river, the way it was at the start before all this happened. I hope that helps people understand. Now, since I made the first video on the Grand Canyon, I started looking at these areas. And again, I mentioned that this area drains south, and you can see all these little drainages that go into these canyons that I think produced them originally, and then they might have been enhanced electrically afterwards, but all of them seem to have a drainage associated with them, each canyon, with an exception. I noticed this one over here. And if you go up and look at it, zoom in a few times here, these drainages flow away from this canyon. They flow this way. This flows down here, but this flows there. There's nothing draining into this. It shouldn't be as big as it is. It doesn't have a fluvial explanation. These are draining into here, not here. This drains away. So this is sort of like Snow Canyon or Zion Canyon. There's no water to explain these canyons. I believe they're electrically excavated, similar to Zion on Snow Canyon, because there's no water available. This water runs like that. It doesn't run like this. This water runs into here, creating this. It explains it. It makes it logical. So a lot of these might be electrically produced. There's some other ones that are kind of straight, similar to Zion. Down here, they run straight across. It reminds me of electrical events in Zion to a degree. So yes, I think there's an electrical component, but it has nothing to do with the creation of the canyon to start with. It's a modification after deposition. The canyon was never there. It was never eroded. It would have been easier for the water to come around here, the path of least resistance. Unless this is rising at the same rate that the river is eroding it, which is what some geologists propose, which seems nuts. So the Vermilion Cliffs seem to have been electrically excavated on the south-facing side. It might have something to do with this, as if the current was trying to move up this way, ripping out this canyon, which doesn't have a fluvial explanation. So I hope this helps. Some of my friends are having a hard time seeing this, hence the repeat. Anyway, thank you very much.